Welcome to Beloved Rebels, where healing meets self-reclamation. If that's what you're into, click subscribe and don't miss a single episode. Today, I'm going to interview the beautiful and wonderful soul, Ashantè, who I'm going to read you her bio. She is the founder of Synchronized Souls, which was born out of a deeply personal journey. As a survivor of childhood sexual assault, Ashantè has spent over a decade healing through practices like therapy, journaling, trauma-informed yoga, somatic movement, meditation, tarot, Reiki healing, inner child healing, shadow work, and more. I'm so looking forward to getting to meet her. Let's dive in. Well, I'm so happy to finally meet you.
Oh, nice to be seeing you too.
Yeah, likewise. I love the idea of the reclamation and that journey of like transforming the pain of the past into the the power, the beauty, the just life and
Yeah.
vibrance of the present. I didn't know how much you had already done when I saw your post and you were like, "Oh, I'm looking to get on podcasts." And after we connected, I checked out your stuff and I'm like, "Damn, she's doing so much."
Appreciate that. Yeah. Doesn't feel so much these days. But yeah, I think it's a little surreal when I look back. I'm like, it's been a journey.
For real, for real. Well, I would love to hear how did your journey start and how did you decide to do this, like this alchemizing of your past pain into something that not only feeds your life but like really benefits people.
Yeah. Where to begin? Really. I feel like my journey goes back to childhood. I'm very open about this in my community, so I'll be the same with your listeners.
Love it.
I was abused by my father growing up, and originally didn't really know what was happening really until I was in like university is when things really started to click.
Mm.
And when I was in school, I really wanted to help people. I thought I was going to be a teacher, so that was the route that I was taking in life. And it wasn't until I was in university and really doing like therapy and starting to kind of like pick apart parts of myself as to why I was the way that I was or why I reacted to the things the way that I did, that I realized that there was something not quite right at home.
Yeah.
And that's when everything came out. It's when everything really shifted for me. And it's really when I started like owning, I would say, like the parts of my story that I really left to the shadow. I used to say I was shipping everything to the moon and just leaving everything with her.
Hmm.
Um, so it was a lot of alchemizing of my own pain and like rediscovering of myself and trying to figure out like who I was outside of being abused, who I was outside of like family duties and obligations, knowing that I really blew that one up too. And it wasn't until crystals came into my life, tarot came into my life, spirituality came into my life that I started finding the language for the things that I experienced. So I never really felt like I had a choice. I started really for myself, and really that's where Synchronized Soul started, was a journey for me to really show with the public and share with the public the things that I was moving through and the things that I thought were, helpful and beneficial and really helping me, transmute the pain that I was moving through. And it was about a year of me doing that one of my friends tapped me and was like, "You should make a business out of this." And I was like, "What? It's not a thing. People don't do that." Eventually, I realized people do that, and
Yeah.
I decided to create a business. So it went from Synchronized Soul to rebranding to Synchronized Souls in 2021, trying to really kind of encompass the community that I was building and the fact that they too were also going along this journey with me, and that's how I started.
I love this. I love this so much. Yeah, I think that's so real.
Hmm.
The because I think a lot of us experience that, like we have the pain, there's the past. And I mean, in my story, when I left a cult and I had this like very sort of encapsulated experience, and I sort of felt like I was so isolated from the world because I didn't know what everybody else was experiencing. It was always them versus us, and we were this little like capsule of so-called protection.
Yeah.
And when I came away from all that and I realized how toxic it was, and I was kind of like sort of energetically like puking it all out, And I felt still very isolated because I felt like nobody's going to understand what I've been through. Nobody's going to understand this kind of like living in a world like you're in this paradigm, which is like
Yeah.
different from everybody else's reality. But then when I started just integrating with the world and realizing how many people have similar experiences,
Hmm.
and like it's bizarre, like it's in some ways so tragic and mind-blowing that like sexual assault to children is such a ridiculously common thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also just like the psychological and emotional abuse and manipulation and all those kind of things, it's just like it goes through so many layers of society.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is in some ways it can be like this superpower, because once you've gone through that and you've made the choice to not be determined by it, and you've made the choice to not be defined by it,
Hmm.
then you have this like you've lit a match and you're like, wow, I can actually guide people through that process of homecoming. Because
Yeah.
the beautiful thing is that whatever our religions or our families or our relationships or the paradigms that we're in, however they try to separate us from
Hmm.
that inner truth and that inner reality of like life, divinity, the juice of life, it can't be bottled and it can't be contained. It's there inside each and every one of us. That's why I love your journey and the whole parallel of that's just what it is. It's like coming out with it and being like, yeah, this is reality, this is us, this is humans, this is me, and this is you,
Yeah.
and that, you owning your divinity and just choosing to show it and not be ashamed of any part of it is just like, it's the most beautiful and incredible, powerful thing. I love it so much. Hell yeah. I'm curious about like how did you come to tarot and Reiki and like these sort of magic-esque elements?
Very taboo. For context, I grew up in a very religious family.
Mm,
My mom's side of the family is very Christian. My father's side of the family, more like Rastafarian in religion, if I was going to akin it to anything. So I feel like spiritual or like energy, even like gifts, is something that very much like fall down my maternal line, but it's not something they use in the same way that I do with our practices. They're very much still very traditional and Christian. Um, Really, where the shift occurred for me was I had somebody do a tarot reading for me. And it was interesting. Her name was Mama Weeze. I still speak to her. I love her.
mm,
I connected with her at a job. We did something called like treetop trekking, and it was just like a series of obstacle courses in the trees. And she brought us all over to her house one night to do a bunch of, readings and like getting to know each other and really kind of connecting with the team. So she's connecting with everybody, and she's like, your guides are like cheerleaders, and like your guides are like sitting at a little office and they're like super helpful, and your guide's just like a crowd of people connecting with you. And I'm like, okay, like this sounds fab. Connect with my guides. I want to hear what you have to say.
nice.
And she's like, oh, I'm gonna have to like, I'm gonna need a minute. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, yeah, they're like chasing me out of your psyche. So I'm just gonna tell them that I mean them no harm and maybe they will pass along some messages. So it was like maybe 10, 20 minutes of her meditating, really speaking
Wow.
to them. And then
Wow.
at the end of it, she came back and was able to pull some cards and do a message. And she's like, yeah, like they're very protective of you, which, considering my childhood, would make sense, right? But beyond that, the message really was to start having fun. And it wasn't something that I understood. I was like, fun, like, who has time for that? I got bills, I got things I got to do. I don't have time to slot in fun into this category of life. And I kind of forgot about it, to be honest. I continued going about my life and didn't really think much of it until I ended up at my first tech job. Somebody gifted me some tarot readings for no reason other than she thought I would enjoy it and thought it would, be aligned with me. And I thought, interesting, past Ashantè probably would have rejected it, but I was at a stage of my life where I was very open, so I accepted it. And that was really the beginning, was me being like gifted this deck and starting to learn more about tarot and pulling cards for myself and then eventually pulling cards for others. And then realizing that I did kind of have a gift in this space in terms of like understanding the unseen, the things that
Mm,
people, try to push away or don't really want to come to light. And Reiki was a byproduct of that. I figured if I had like the language in terms of, tarot and that being a divination practice that I could use to connect, then, getting to understand energy work would be something that would go hand in hand. So was Reiki master and then crystal healing, past life healings. I've done, trauma work as well in terms of yoga and became certified in that way. So I feel like similar to your point earlier about religion, that there's all these different facets and paradigms. I feel very similar with divination tools. Like it doesn't need to be tarot, it could be runes, it could be playing cards. There's so many different ways that you can get in, but it's about like that focus and that intentionality and whatever tool you choose. Tarot does that for me, provides me the focus that I need for me to really tap in to the spaces that I like to tap into.
I love that. I resonate with that a lot. So, I also did my yoga certification and have done a lot with sort of energetics. I've always been like very intuitive.
Mhm.
And I think in some cases that kind of made me a target because I didn't have a language for it and I didn't have as much self-trust, but I would feel things and I would ask questions about it. And then in the situations where the leader was like defensive of his position or whatever, that just made me like, they called me all kinds of things, like just for the fact of asking simple questions like, oh, what about this and why that, and like, what if we tried this, like, it just became this like huge defense target response. And at the time I still considered myself very Christian. I still was like, in the whole kind of straight and narrow thing, like, oh yes, I read the Bible, this is my thing, I pray all the time. And being that sort of devoted to that concept and still being called a witch or like a demon or like whore of Satan and shit like that. I might edit that out. I don't know. It feels really like strange to like say it in words, but like those were the things they were calling me when I was literally just like asking very practical questions.
Yeah.
So moving away from that and doing my trauma healing, and trauma healing is so fascinating for me because it's neurology, right? Your neurons and the patterns in your brain, like they have a particular pattern, but when you use certain like movements, and eye movements and hand and body movements and breath work, those things seem so disconnected, like from the way that we think of health and thoughts and things like that. They seem like such a separate thing from the way that we're typically taught, but they have such an impactful effect on how we think and how our neurons move and how the energy then ends up moving through us. And through doing this kind of neurological work, I did brain sweep and brain spotting and like eye movement, and that helped me to release those traumas and things like that. But at the same time, I was like, that is such an interesting connection. How like you can do these like movements over your cortexes in your brain, and you're not touching anything. You're not getting in there surgically and like actually moving things around, but stuff is shifting. And I guess that kind of like showed me something about energy moving and even Reiki and breath work and all that, and how with our thoughts and with our breath we can actually move stuff. And I guess that for me was part of the beginning of this journey, and then realizing that, wait a minute, all these paradigms and the ways they say things have to be, and like they call you bad things, but then it ends up just being their defense for their control and not even for anybody's benefit. So then then it just kind of like, it sort of smashed the paradigm, and it was really hard to actually process that. It took some time to be like, wait a minute, what? Like this whole paradigm? And then I guess brick by brick and chip by chip, you start like breaking it down and being like, okay, I don't have to be attached to any of this stuff. And even exploration of spiritual things, like I love how you're like, it doesn't have to be like, it doesn't have to be tarot, it doesn't have to be this, like the energy and it's really the energy, the messages, the whatever your connection, your spirit and I hesitate to use the word spirit because that has such a like, also like this sort of structured,
Yeah.
right, this context to it, like, oh, the spirit, and people think of Holy Spirit, and like, oh yes, it is Holy Spirit, it is energy moving through you, and it is something divine kind of speaking to you and speaking with you and speaking out of you,
Yeah.
or guiding you on your path. um so yeah, I love just the idea of this exploration and being open to how it comes out at you
Yeah,
in some
I
way.
agree. I think we get really stuck in power dynamics and like systems
Mm.
of power, like whether or not people realize it or not. It's something that's probably the first part, even before I guess I began my spiritual journey. It's just like breaking down like intellectual thought. You know what I mean? It's just like, why do I feel bound by my father and my mom and to do the things that they want me to do? Why do I feel bound by education or work or society to like show up in certain ways? And it all goes back to power dynamics at the end of the day, right?
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I think it wasn't until I started like owning things and starting to take back some of my power where it's just like I'm giving it away a little too freely right now. Like nobody needs to have so much say into the things that I'm choosing to do with my life.
Preach, girl. Oh my
By
god.
the end of it, you're not gonna care and you're not gonna know. So like going through all of these emotions and like using all of this energy for things that like truly don't matter, it was like a really life-changing and I think breathtaking thing for you to like take a first breath. And it's a lot of things, just gonna sound very say it out loud, but it's a feeling that people usually feel when their parents die,
Ooh,
right? And I could not
wow.
imagine waiting until I was 40, 50, 60 to actually feel like I could be my own individual person outside of my family dynamics. I
Yeah, oh
think
my
being
gosh.
separated from that early on, although traumatic, is very liberating looking back at it because I am like individually my own person, made up with various different thoughts and beliefs and paradigms, but nothing is stuck or nothing is obligated or passed down or inherited in the way that it was. And, I think that is really beautiful to be able to do that for yourself.
Yeah, totally. And that's such a like it's such a hard thing to think about, that particular part of life transition. It's like, oof, that's I mean, I've been so fortunate that I have not had any close deaths in my family, and it is a really difficult thing to think of facing eventually.
Yeah.
And I'm fortunate that my parents are in good health. Um, but it's I cannot imagine yet that transition.
Yeah. I
You
think a
know,
lot of people can't. I don't, well, I also think a lot of people don't, right? Like who wants to think
yeah,
about grief? And I don't think we as a society do a really good job to like hold space for people who are grieving,
very
or people
true,
who are
very
moving
true.
through it.
Hmm. Yeah, I think as a society, going back to that point, holding space for grief in general and holding space for uncomfortable feelings
Mhm.
is something that we've not been good at. It's not been very just like the education around it about like, how do you hold space for somebody who's in discomfort? How do you hold space for somebody who's grieving or who's in a space of emotional pain that you can't actually fix? You can't actually just stop it. It's the rhetoric around it is stop the pain, make it go away. It's like you can't make grief just go away. It has to process through your body, and you have to allow it to, you know, give yourself however long it takes to cry those tears and to process it. Really, it has to move through the body, and
Yeah,
that's just like it's such a powerful thing to know.
agreed.
Yeah. And on that point, I'm very curious about like the shadow work,
Mm.
the aspect of what you do.
Yeah, shadow work. Love shadow work. I think it goes back to I guess that uncomfortable piece that we were speaking about earlier. I think a lot of my journey was shadow work before I knew it, like
Mm,
taking the time to go to therapy or wanting to take the time to uncover parts of myself. Even coming out, I think, was in itself some part of like shadow work.
mm,
A lot of it goes back to kind of like owning the parts of yourself that maybe you might have hidden away or didn't make space for because other people didn't hold space for those aspects of you. And when I speak about shadow work, I really think about kind of like revisiting those parts of yourself and reclaiming those parts of yourself and kind of making peace with it instead of us like ignoring or feeling shame or rejecting the parts of ourselves that are weird or wonky or feel a little other. And I always try to remind people that like your shadow doesn't disappear, and we're also not trying to get rid of it. We're just trying
Mm,
to integrate it. We're
yes.
trying to accept it. It's not a bad thing that needs to be away. Like your ego, it's
Yeah.
not a bad thing that you have an ego. But when things are out of balance, I think that's the bigger problem. Like how can we going back to the business, right? Synchronize, right? And make sure that things are actually in alignment
Mm-hmm.
instead of out of balance, whatever way, whether it's over or under or just not quite right, just finding that alignment with yourself. And that's a lot of what shadow work is. It's like revisiting those reactions or revisiting those parts of your stories as to like why you were ashamed or why you shut them down or
Mm.
um, why we do the things that we do, which I think is always really interesting once you figure it out. Patterns,
So
cycles, and
amazing.
recognition. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so fascinating, and the way that you said it, because I was right before our call, I was processing a conversation that I had with my parents
Mhm.
because we grew up like it was a missionary environment, right? It was like we were traveling around, and my father was like very focused on like gospel, teaching Bible classes, evangelizing, things like that. And like in my parents' world, that's like the ultimate thing to do. Like the number one good thing you can do for the world is share the message of Jesus, right?
Mhm.
That's their, and that was the paradigm that I grew up in. And the like the first thing that kind of broke it for me was I had always grown up like the name of Jesus is your strong tower. So if you just go to that one thing, then you'll be
Mhm.
safe, no matter what. And in a lot of ways, I felt like it worked. Like I did travel around the world when I was 16 and on a train by myself across India, and like nothing bad happened to me, which is honestly kind of miraculous. And like I was 24 or something, and in Central America, and driving cross country up the Panamericana, and we got attacked by bandits, and we survived. Like there was so many different like instances where I was like, okay, so this is working for me, right? It was this like, and I still have. It's funny. I didn't think I was going to tell this story, so I don't have. But I had this like Jesus poster that when we did get attacked by bandits, and it was like night, and there was nobody around, and like there was like six people with guns like surrounding our car. And I was like, my reaction at the time was like, I put the Jesus poster at the window because I know they're like Christian Catholics in Central America. So like I put that poster at the window. I'm like, somos misioneros. So like, we're missionaries. Like, don't hurt us. And the dude shot like through the picture, like literally an inch from my finger. He could have shot my hand off. And like the picture itself, it was like a profile of like a painting of Jesus like this, and the bullet
Mhm.
went through like the temple
Oh
of
no.
the picture there, right?
Mhm.
And so I still have that poster just because it was kind of like it was sort of this, I guess,
Moment.
reminder of this moment. It was this whole thing. But fast forward maybe a decade and a half later, and I had been through like some very intense narcissistic abuse, and I'd been through all this kind of stuff, and all of it kind of in the name of Jesus too. So
Mhm.
that whole experience was like, this isn't going to save you, right? This, like, it's a paradigm, and it's good to have something that you kind of hold on to, kind of like a talisman or something, some like,
Yeah.
but at the same time, in and of itself, it's not going to do what you think it's going to do.
Yeah.
What you really need is like truth and honesty, and like actually reality, and education as well on like, okay, what are power dynamics, and what are, when is it manipulation, and when is all those kind of things.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
to bring it to kind of close the loop, I was thinking about my conversation with my parents where I had kind of confronted them because their paradigm had always been this is like a positive Christian missionary thing. But at the same
Mhm.
time, it was this cult, and the bigger cult did foster a lot of child abuse, and the leader of the cult was like blatantly like molested children, and just like had this whole like idea about sexuality and child sexuality and all kinds of things that like it was very not like it wasn't clean at all.
Mhm.
So when I confronted my parents about it, they were just all on the like, well, there were court cases, but the group was proven innocent,
Yeah.
right? And then I was like, I was thinking about this, like, how do you see it only in that light? You know, like how can you not see that there are people who experienced this as children and grew up and told their stories, and they're not
Yeah.
making this shit up. Like they don't have these lives of like anger and all these emotions to process just because they wanted to. Like they had those
Mhm.
experiences, and that shit is real, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I guess that concept of the shadow work and like realizing the darkness in everything, and is not about denying the darkness, and the darkness in each of us too. Like
Agreed.
we're not these perfect people, and we try to show up as, you know, this best version of ourselves and all that, and I think that's great, you know, lean into the best version of yourself, but you can't do that without facing also the worst version.
Completely agree. Yeah. I feel like with people's shadows, they tend not to look because they're scared to see what they're going to find. And that's
Mm,
all I could really think about when you were sharing with your parents is it honestly, I try not to take it personally now because it has nothing to do with us. It has everything to do with everybody else's like worldview and the
mm,
things that they believe are and aren't possible. And I think when it comes to child abuse specifically, a lot of people kind of like akin it to like this is things that happen in movies and not really like the face of like these are children and people that you know and people that you work with and people that you call friends and stories that maybe they share and some, they don't share at all, but it's
mm-hmm,
not a storyline to progress a plot, like it's an actual story that happens. And I think a lot of people can't look into that shadow and see it because they're scared of what they will
mm-hmm.
then see in themselves.
Oh my
I'd
gosh, so
rather
true.
get to know who I am on all levels and be like, I know what my limits are, shadow and light, than not knowing at all or not having any idea that even that part of me exists. I think ignorance is not bliss.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes, I totally agree with that. That it's yeah, exactly that point. Ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance is protecting the shadow.
Yeah, I think it's costly.
It is. It's very
Mhm.
costly. I feel like that's a moment to just like process.
Something to think on. Yeah.
Yes. Oh gosh. I guess another aspect of that is how isolating it can feel to to know what happened to you and not really have a space to
Yeah.
share it.
Yeah. It's I feel like loneliness is part of the journey. There's two things that I would like akin to like human condition. Loneliness is one, suffering is the other. Maybe a
Mm,
controversial thought. But I think going back to like shadow and light, I don't think you can really know what love is if you have not endured suffering. And I think everybody that is human, anybody who is on this earth knows what suffering is in one form or the other. And I think loneliness is the other like extent of that. I think if you want to elevate, if you want to grow, then it's going to require you to be lonely. And that's
yeah.
something that you, in my opinion, must make your peace with. That there's going to be moments where you are going to be the only person seeking or doing the thing that you feel is the best thing to do. And that is okay. I think there's a
Mm-hmm.
difference between being lonely and being alone. I felt very alone throughout my journey, and I think loneliness now is something that I seek. So I don't feel all that anything when it comes to loneliness, but I think like the alone is the bigger piece. Like, do you feel lonely or do you feel like alone throughout your journey? And I don't feel alone. I don't feel like I'm one of, the only one who's going through things. And I think throughout society, it's really easy to feel like the token child, and
Ooh.
between all of the identities, between like being Black, being a woman, being bisexual, like going through sexual assault, I could definitely chalk it up to like there's nobody who's experienced this. And I try not to, I try to take the route of we've all experienced some form of, loneliness or feeling like the only token or the only person in the room. And it's
Mm.
better to understand that feeling and figure out how to pivot and move through it than it is to like sit in that feeling. Um, yeah, I think those are my thoughts right now.
That really resonates with me on so many levels because which one do I hit first? um, yes. First of all, I think that loneliness, the seeking loneliness, that's an
Yeah,
um, interesting
concept, huh?
one. Yeah.
I seek loneliness when I know that I'm moving through something. There's a lot of times in
Mm,
my community I disappear and they know me for it now. I don't feel in my personal story with my life path and my signs, like I'm not one to teach while I'm moving through something. I have to look at something back to sit down and be like, oh, I've reflected, I've moved past it. Like, what can I now bring to the table now that I've, gotten over that hump? So as a result, there's a lot of times in my life where I sit down and say, not today. I
mm,
have nothing to give you. I have nothing to offer because I need to process. And the only way I can really do that is in like loneliness and in peace,
solitude. Yeah.
Exactly. So when my sister passed, I left the city and I moved to a small town of like 4,000. I got a cat. I completely pivoted and changed my entire life and my scenery and what I thought I was going to be doing. And it really is just to give myself the time and space to like synchronize the things that I know and the things that I feel. I feel like if I can't get those two things in alignment, then I can't make any decisions. There's no clarity, there's only confusion. And then it's me being stuck, and I don't like being
Yeah.
stuck for
I
long
love,
periods of time.
yeah.
Nothing worse
Absolutely.
for me,
Right?
truly. No, I will not fit in this cycle or pattern any longer. Like, I feel like movement is the one thing that I'm constantly looking for in life. And loneliness gives me that. If I can sit down and get myself right and get my knowing and my feelings together, then I can accept and move forward and pivot a lot faster. But if I can't do that because I'm taking into account other people's feelings or expectations or wants
Oof.
and needs of me, then I'm always going to be confused in terms of what it is that I know and feel. So it's very Scorpio-esque, right? To be like, I'm just gonna go be by myself and I'll see you later. Maybe not the route
Yeah,
everybody wants to take, but definitely something that has worked for me. Yeah.
for sure. I mean, I relate to that a lot, and it's what I'm taking for myself, like a little jewel that I'm taking for me is giving myself permission to do that because that's something that I rarely do, and when I do, I feel a little bit guilty about it. I'm like, I do need to take this time for myself, and I usually wait until it's like really important, that I'm like, nope, I definitely cannot because I'm starting to burn at the edges, and then I take my time, and it takes a like I still feel guilty about like taking time away and just being like, no, this needs to be me and the trees because only the trees understand. um,
Yeah. I have a favorite tree here.
yes. But yes, it's such a, I think it's part of being, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, in some ways, I feel like it's part of being an intuitive person or just like
Mm,
a nature lover maybe, but like I don't know,
mm,
for me it's how I feed my soul. And I was talking with a friend the other day, and she was asking like how do I like get that feeling of peace, because she was like looking for a relationship. And I was
yeah.
like, you have to start with that peace inside of you. And she's like, but I can't because I need somebody else. Right.
Mm,
And that was her energy. It was like, and I was like, look, when I feel that way, I take a walk and I hug a tree. And that tree just gives me this serotonin. Like I sit there and I hug the tree and I feel the roots and I feel
Yeah.
the energy of just like how calm it is. And I just sit there and I hug it and it feels like I feel my shoulders drop and I feel like I'm hugging a best friend or just, like
Yeah. I
somebody
feel
who
so similar.
really is grounded. And I'm like, oh, that's so good. And then it gives me back that energy. Sometimes I climb trees too because it's such like I'll sit in a
Love
tree
that.
half an hour. I'll just be like, yes. It's giving
Love
me
trees.
energy.
True.
In some other life, I was a tree nymph, I'm sure.
Pretty positive without question.
Yes. But yeah, I love, so you're a Scorpio.
Yeah, Scorpio stellium. Funny enough, I have 5 planets in Scorpio in the 12th house. That's all about like death, funny enough, and like rebirth,
Wow.
the unconscious, but it's my sun sign, my Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, and Pluto. Um, and all in the house of like the hidden and unconscious. So like very much like they weren't subtle. I feel like every single time I look at my chart and I think of my story, it's like it was all in there. It was all in there, laid out. I just did not know. But my rising sign is a Sagittarius, and then my moon sign is Aries. So I think it's the reason why I think people know that I'm a Scorpio, but they also feel like I'm not a traditional Scorpio. And it's definitely
Mm,
because of my Sag rising. Like, I can't just like keep things in this cave. I have to build it and then share it and then understand it.
yes.
And then it's a lot of strong feelings that are very fleeting. So I try to tell people like, don't take offense. I just need you to know that I'm unhappy. And the
Hmm.
moment that I know that you know this, I'm not going to be unhappy anymore. I
That's
need
that's
you to
great. That's great.
acknowledge and understand that like it's a real emotion. And the moment you do, the emotion will change. But I very much feel like astrology is kind of like a map, like it's
Mm,
not here to tell you exactly everything that's supposed to happen, but if you take a look at it and if you're intentional enough, it will definitely give you like understanding as to why, things happen the way that they do, but everything is in hindsight. Like if I looked at my charts before everything, I would have been like, I don't know, but like it's only looking back where I'm like, that
yeah,
makes sense, it's all clicking.
for sure. I mean, I look at astrology that way a little bit too. Like I don't necessarily look to it to kind of guide me, but I look at it as a reference. I'm like, oh, that's why. Because it
Yeah,
kind of like makes whatever's going on make sense in a sort
it
of
really
way.
does.
We do
Yeah.
have the Aries moon in common. Um, yes.
What are your
My
other two?
So I'm like thick Pisces. I've got Sun in Pisces. I think I've got no Venus is Aries. I've got a lot of Aries in my chart,
Oh,
but my ascendant, my rising is a Scorpio.
I love that.
And yes, gotta love it. There's a sting to it, but it's really adorable and it's so hot. Like I'm sorry, Scorpio is just a really like sensual,
Agreed.
great, beautiful energy, and
Yeah.
like oh my gosh, I love it. Um, And what's funny is for a lot of my teen years, I thought that I had a Sagittarius rising. I thought I was Aries Sag,
Huh.
moon and rising. But then I think that was just like a misread because every time I search my horoscopes, it's very like definitely a Scorpio rising. So I'm like, cool, I'll take it. But yeah, I've got a lot of Aries and Pisces.
Yep. The Aries moon we have in common for sure. But a lot of my family, funny enough, has a lot of Aries sign, and my cat does too. Shadow Moon. He's an
Mm,
Aries.
I love the name.
Which makes people laugh too. Yeah, it's just like how adorable.
Hmm. That's freaking great. Yeah, I like looking at astrology signs as it's almost like a game, like a fun like, oh, does this match
Mhm.
kind of thing. And I've seen it's interesting how like we can look at our signs and let them tell us things about ourselves. And
Mhm.
I've known some people to feel limited by that.
Mm.
To feel like, oh, but I'm at this, and that means that I can't. And actually, I felt like this for a long time because I don't have almost any earth signs. So there's the four
Mm.
elements. I'm gonna
Yeah.
recap it for anybody who's listening who's not super familiar with the astrology things. So there are four elements, and there's 12 signs, and in each element, the earth, the fire, the water, and the air, there are three, right? 3 times 4 is 12. That's my
You're
math.
correct.
So there are three signs in each element. And so each of the elements kind of has their sort of main strengths, and the water elements are the Pisces, the Scorpio, and the Cancer. And then
Hmm.
the fire elements are the Leo, the Sagittarius, and the Aries.
Yeah.
The earth elements are Virgo, Taurus, and Capricorn.
Hmm.
And then the air is Gemini, help me out,
Aquarius.
Aquarius,
And
and what's missing?
so funny, I have no air sign. So Gemini, Aquarius.
And
Oh, they're gonna hate us.
right? Okay, whoever we missed, we love you. And we're so sorry, but I also barely have any.
Libra, Libra.
Libra, yes. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Yes, Libra. And it's funny because I don't think of Libra as airy, right? Libra has got this balance thing to it, and that's why it's hard to identify as air.
We promise we love you,
We
Libras.
do love you, Libras. And Libras also, honestly, I have really great energy with Libras. My big brother is a Libra, and
A lot of
very fun
yeah.
energy in Libras. And like, I mean, okay, we could go through the whole horoscope and talk about all the things we love about him. But I wanted to say about like the way that we limit ourselves with our horoscopes, taking myself as an example, is so I've got lots of water and lots of fire
Hmm.
in my horoscope and all the planets and all the houses, and I have almost zero earth. So that kind of gave me this mindset that I'm not a very grounded person,
Hmm.
right? So I the only planet of mine that is in any earth sign is Pluto in Capricorn. And I thought like Pluto far away, right?
Yeah.
Pluto's way off there somewhere. And and like so I had this mindset of like, okay, I'm not a really grounded person. So I always was attracted to earth signs, Taurus,
Hmm.
Capricorn, and Virgo. And it's interesting because like my Chiron, my wound things are in Taurus,
Oh,
you
interesting.
know? And so the people that have hurt me the most in my life have ended up being Tauruses, interestingly enough. But I also get along really well. Like I have some really best friends who are Tauruses. And so it's not to say that like that there's anything about the signs in itself, but I think it had to do with my mindset around, or like the story that I told myself around,
Yeah.
these are my signs, these are my limitations. And because I don't have any earth in my horoscope, that means I'm not grounded. I don't have the capacity to be grounded. And
Hmm.
so I
Hmm.
need to find grounding in an external source.
Yeah.
So for
Yeah.
most of my life, I was looking for that. And that's what kind of allowed those people to hurt me because I
Hmm.
wasn't taking responsibility for that part of my life, thinking that I wasn't capable, just because of the story that I told myself around the astrology, right? And
Hmm.
like, I think whatever elements that we have in our lives and in our stories, and we can say the same about our genetics, we can say the same about our nationality or our experiences or any of those things, we can let them limit us and be like, well, I experienced this and that limits me in this way. So I can't, anything that we say like I can't, or, that's why, or because of this.
Yeah.
Um, and it doesn't necessarily have to be like, it could be that we have extra challenges in that place, but it
Hmm.
doesn't actually limit us because very often our extra challenges end up being our greatest strengths if we
Yeah.
approach them with patience and like grace and compassion and learning through them instead of just saying, oh, can't do it, not built that way.
I
So
completely agree. I feel like it's interesting going back to like mindsets too, like the people who have like a fixed mindset and the
mm,
people like who like don't, you know, who realize that they can grow and have more of a growth mindset. And I think that definitely determines the way that you're going to look at like astrology, but like also like any tool, you know, like it could
mm,
always be something that limits you if you perceive it that way, or it can be something that helps you like grow and like just identify, you know, and be a little bit more self-aware and as a result, you know, maybe a little bit more clear when you're making decisions and
mm-hmm,
choosing to do things in life. I love astrology. I look at it often. not on like a daily basis, but more on like a, to your point, like what's happening in the energy right now of like the world or the collective that I should be
Right.
aware of, or
Mm-hmm.
is there something specific to me taking like the Aries full moon that just went? I've never been more irritated than I was this entire week, but I knew that because there was
Yeah.
this whole full moon in
Yep.
Aries and all of my Aries signs were agitated. So I had to tell myself a lot this week to just be quiet. Don't talk.
Preach.
Wait, if you feel
Wait for the
strongly about
storm
it,
to
say it
pass.
then. It's nice to have that tool to navigate things, to be like, is this really me right now, or am I just being affected by
Oh,
the way
yeah.
of the world? And I think that way too with like being a fixed mindset. Like if you are somebody who believes that there are like only two choices, you're not being creative enough. Like I
Right
just
on,
can't
right on.
imagine going through life being like it's and or. Like what happened to both? Like
Yes.
that is the third option. Like,
Yeah.
I do not like moving through anything where I feel like there's only just two choices. I'm like, that's not a choice if there's only two choices. There has to be more choices available in a world of like infinite possibilities. Just like math
Yes.
alone, you're telling me there's
Mm-hmm.
only two choices? That doesn't make sense. So I always try to like open it out. Like if there's two, then I'm not being creative enough. And if I'm limiting myself, then like I'm not acknowledging the ability to like grow and like the fact that we can grow, right? Even with astrology. Like yeah, your signs can be what they are, but you can also grow to develop so many different skills that other signs, have or don't have. And I resonated so strongly when you said Taurus because my South Node is in Taurus, so all of my past relationships have been with Taurus people, which makes me laugh so hard because I know it's just like a past energy thing that's like calling on me. It's familiar and
Mm-hmm.
it's like what I'm used to, but is it what I need in like this lifetime? No, not at
Right.
all. And for reasons they all fail, but I keep trying. Like that's
Hey.
how much I don't limit myself, y'all. Even when I know better, I still give them a chance because this one too could be different.
Right? They could always be different.
It's different than their chart. Why is it telling myself? Oh,
This is not self-denial. This is
no, no. This is the argument of nature versus nurture, okay? That
yes.
is all it is. Theory as old as time. Okay, I'm just testing the limits.
I love it how we do that though.
Right? I've learned from early through Mean Girls, the limit does not exist.
I know. We have our whole lives to explore and to find out. As I have to say, just fuck around and find out.
Exactly. Do it for the plot. Do it for the storyline.
For the storyline, exactly. Oh boy. Woo.
Good laugh.
Oh, that was a great laugh. And speaking of laughing, laughing is such a healing thing to do.
Yeah, agreed.
And especially around our traumas and our heartbreaks and our whatever the heck stays in our nervous system, when we get to laugh specifically about that kind of thing. That's why I always tell people who are going through a breakup or something like that, when you get to the point that you can laugh about it, when you get to the point that you can even sort of gently bring yourself into the space of laughing about it. And sometimes, like when on my healing journey, there were times when I was like, I went through laughter therapy and it was very healing, but some of the times it would be like I'd start laughing and it would just end up in a big sob. But that's what my body needed at the time. And so yeah, I feel like I just opened a whole nother can of worms, but we're really close to the end of this hour, which has been so fun. And I'm so like, this has been such a great conversation, and I love that we connected.
Same. This has been great. Enjoyed our
Nice.
chat so much.
Yes, so much. Well, as we close out, two thoughts in my head. One, how do you feel about, I have a tarot deck here as well. Like we could draw a tarot card for each other.
Yeah, I have a deck here too.
Cool.
What deck are you using?
It is a Raider White.
Ah, traditional.
Traditional
I
treads.
have my modern witch
Mmm,
tarot deck.
love it.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, mine in this traditional one is it's a
Ooh.
wooden box with the Empress on the front, and I just love the
Okay,
energy of the
obsessed.
Empress. Yeah, right.
Obsessed. Yeah, I'm hoping when I'm in Italy that I can buy like a traditional tarot deck.
Mm.
Since, considering history and everything, but I've never seen a wooden box though. That's new for me. What? You do that?
Yeah,
That's sick.
it is pretty cool.
My favorite part.
Yes. Mm, something fell out. I'm not gonna look at it yet.
Okay,
Okay, I don't know what it is, but it's on the floor. All right, who goes first?
up to you.
You.
Okay. Your podcast, your rules.
I'll take it.
Two cards fell up for you. First card that came out was the Knight of Cups, and it came out
Mm.
in reverse. And then you had the Tower that came up, that also came
Mm.
up in reverse. Um, so interesting simply because when I'm not sure if you read reversals in your practice, but when I read reversals, I read them as like a blockage. Um, so just something to like keep in mind. For the Knight of Cups, when it comes up, we're really thinking about usually this Knight of Cups comes up if he's in reverse or upright. He's really like creative, romantic, emotionally charged. But in reverse, we're really thinking about the energy being kind of stalled or like
Mm.
internalized. So it's almost as if it's taking you a little bit harder for you to arrive at this place of trust for yourself. And then that tower that's coming up in reverse is really speaking about this collapse of you trusting yourself has been delayed, I would
Mm.
say. Like you've been dismantling for a while. It's not like a sudden fall. It's a structure that's been like coming down, I would say, like longer than anticipated, and probably feels very painful as a result too. But there is a relationship between the like emotional structure needed and the patterns that we're kind of, I would say, breaking down simultaneously, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
not a warning that something external is coming, which is usually what happens when the tower comes up, but because it's paired with this very internal story, we're more thinking about like dynamics. Like, what is the creative direction that you actually want to take? What are the things that you emotionally want to invest on? What's being maybe built on ground that isn't so solid right now? And like how do
Mm.
you start feeling and finding some like grace as you like let things go gently rather than like mm, feeling like it's taking from you, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah,
Resonate.
that is so potent and so relevant because I've been like on this exploration of like exploring coaching and like all the tools that I've been learning to heal myself and like wanting to offer this. And it's been a struggle because I've been posting about it and everything like that, but I don't feel like I've been quite clear on like
Mm,
exactly who I serve and exactly how I serve them. And so there's not been like the feedback of like, wow, this is great. And, like it hasn't been like a big flow, you know?
mhm,
And where I feel like yes, this is my direction, but there needs to be some adjustment and like fine tuning and things like that. And it's been really so true, like everything you said, because it's been such an internal process of me like looking inward and finding out like where is it just me lacking self-belief because of whatever I've been through and all those kind of things and all the stories I had
mhm.
about myself, and where is it actually like alignment, and adjustment, and really just kind of like, I guess, allowing the happenings to just massage the path towards really like where the flow is going. That's really
Yeah.
amazing.
you're a client, I would say that one, we all have inherent, value when it comes to like what it is that you offer. And throughout time, more clarity will be given, right? I don't
Mm-hmm.
think there is a need for you to have everything figured out. I think you just need to have it figured out for you so that you can
Mm-hmm.
explain it to others, knowing that that's going to be something that you continue to refine as you work with more people, as you continue to take more courses, like as life continues to happen, there's going to be all of these other things that occur. So I don't want you to feel like you have to like wait for you to have everything together. I think going back to like our movement conversation, it's more important to move and to constantly make edits and changes and just
I
see what
agree. Yeah.
happens than it is to like wait for things to be perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's really on point because I think that's what I felt very strongly about this, but also life kind of moved me in the direction of doing it. And so,
Hmm.
like, I'm very glad that I started and that I started exploring it. And
Hmm.
also, like, the feedback not being what I expected is just another step in the journey. And just kind of also not, not looking at it as a bad thing or as invalidating or any of those things, but just allowing the feedback to just be what it is. It's feedback, right? It's feedback. So like, okay, cool. Now we can adapt and learn. And I mean, I'm super loving podcasting and being able to like talk about this and like interview amazing people like you. So I think that's definitely an aspect that I'm gonna keep on keeping
Lauren,
on with. So
love
I love
that.
this. So cool. All right,
What
let's
did
see
you
what your
get?
card is. Woo. Okay. I'm not I'm not a professional tarot reader, so I'm going to allow you to interpret it. Does that make sense?
Mhm, mhm.
Okay. And it was death reversed.
Oh, God. It's so funny. That is the most Scorpio of Scorpio. That is the Scorpio card.
And
So it's just like,
what am I drinking?
liquid death. Like, it's just
And he's
hilarious.
upside down, he's like being poured like this water
Yeah,
and he's just like
hilarious. That is like right on the nose. Like, nothing. That's such a beautiful synchronicity. But
because this
yeah,
is transformation, isn't it?
that's exactly it. Death, transformation, and basically everything that lives underneath it. And if it's coming up in reverse, it means I myself am refusing the transformation that I'm
Mm.
supposed to be doing. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, what do you want from me?
What do you want from me?
Right? Like,
Wow.
but it goes to rejecting a transformation that's being asked of me right now. If I was to, give it a thought, I would say it's probably me moving. I moved, as I told you, after my sister passed, and I've been working and I think feeling in a better place. And the question has been, do I rejoin society? And I'm like, why?
Mm.
Like I'm out here with the trees and the cats. And then it's like, oh, because you're young and there's still like a life to live and people to meet, and maybe you should explore. But there's this part of me that's just like, but like, really? Like,
Why would I do
like really
that?
people again? Like, I thought we peopled ourselves out like for a little bit. So it's definitely been an ongoing thought, and love to hear that they think I'm refusing it. So I will journal about this
Yeah.
tonight.
Lovely. Well, I look forward to hearing. I hope you'll stay in touch and let me know how things evolve for you and
Definitely.
how it rolls and what transitions you do make and what comes up for you. That'd be so cool.
I'll tell you for sure.
Hell yeah. Wonderful. So I guess we're coming to a close. So before we say adios, um, let everybody know where you can be found and if there's any particular like offering that you're promoting right now. I'd love to know about that.
Yeah. Where you can find me, probably most active on Instagram and Threads, and that's going to be at underscore synchronized souls Inc. My website is also where I do a lot of my blog posts, so people just are curious to know what's happening or more about astrology or more about my own story. Synchronized souls.com is going to be a great place for you to just subscribe and get yourself up to date on all of the new things. I would say, based on our conversation today, there's two things I wanted to let listeners know about. One of them is that I do have a shadow self workbook, kind of going back to the working through
Mm,
something and then creating something based on that. So that's definitely something that it's available if people want to maybe explore their own shadow self or learn a little bit more about what shadow work is. And the second thing I would definitely recommend is I have a self-paced tarot course. It's called Tarot Foundations.
mm.
It's something that you can do in your own space, in your own time. You have access to all of the content, but really thinking about like 4 weeks, if you do it in 4 weeks, kind of week over week, so that you can learn a little bit more about tarot and figure out how you can read intuitively for yourself or even for other people if that's something that is open or curious to people as well.
Beautiful. I love that. I think I might go and explore some of that too.
Love that.
That sounds really cool. And so when I post this, I'll drop all those things in the show notes. And yeah, this has been such an exciting, wonderful conversation. And as I always say at the end of each podcast, be a rebel.
Love that.